Let's get one thing out of the way real quick. If you're about to say something along the lines of these comparisons are disrespectful, there never has been or ever will be anyone that compares to Michael Jackson, I agree. No one has come close to taking that title of the King of Pop from him. That's not what this video is about. Instead, what I want to do is have a discussion on which of today's artists have done the best job at combining all of those attributes that made MJ who he was. I'm not interested in nor qualified to crown the new King of Pop, but let's talk about who is the heir to the shiny glove. Who is the Prince of Pop? Michael Joseph Jackson. What do you think of when you hear those words? Maybe it's the sounds he's made on some of these records, the notes he's hit, the undeniable choruses we've all sung along to, the moments in our lives, happy, sad, and everything in between, that he's carefully constructed the soundtrack to. You've got amazing collaborations with Quincy Jones, Van Halen on the guitar for Beat It. You even got the ultimate collaboration song in We Are the World, which had damn near every single big artist at the time.
But if you just believe, there's no way we can fall.
Maybe it's the headlines you've read about him, the things that you've seen while browsing through the internet, and you're like, huh, that Michael Jackson is it's a weird one, that part of Michael Jackson. Maybe it's his undeniable ability to perform, despite the world following every breath he takes, every move he makes, he delivered every single time. Iconic moment after iconic moment over the years because of this insane combo of unseen choreography, legendary work ethic, and just pure showmanship. Maybe it's the attention to detail Michael gave every single album. He was well aware of the standard he set for himself and had this ambition to, evolve the idea of Michael Jackson and what you think of the music he put out, but also evolving the boundaries and what we'd imagine pop music to be. I mean, that 3-album run in Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad is one of, if not the greatest album run of all time, just in terms of record sales, in terms of influence, in terms of just the pure quality of music. Who knows, maybe it's something else. Go ahead and leave that in the comments if you'd like, and while you're down there, go ahead and leave a like. But for me, when I think of MJ and why he's on that pedestal, it's because of his ability to do it all, and do it all at the highest possible degree, with every single person watching him, all while making music that touched the souls of people all over the world. So what I did was spend countless hours putting together a list of artists that, have been brought up as, potentially the next King of Pop. Then take that list and distill it down even further and narrowed it down to an even smaller, more select collection of artists, really discuss who embodies everything that made MJ who he was. We'll discuss how they're similar, how they're different, all that kind of stuff. And if you're interested in hearing some of the honorable mentions that didn't make the cut, go ahead and check out the extended version over on our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. Now, without further ado, let's get into some of these prospects. The first one being Chris Brown. Now, Chris Brown has garnered quite the reputation over the past couple years, and rightfully so, as some of the stuff he's done is just straight up terrible. But one thing that you can't deny about him is that he's just one of the greatest performers to ever grace a stage. I mean, he danced so well that one time that homeboy wanted to murder him, if we're talking about that documentary, Oscar-winning documentary, Stomp the Yard. He had a very strong self-titled debut album and has since compiled an impressive catalog of hits like Forever, Kiss Kiss, She Ain't You, No Flame, Go Crazy, Look at Me Now, or my personal favorite, Ain't No Way You Won't Love Me. As you can see, he's also done it in so many different genres, going from rap, electronic funk, dance, R&B, you name it. Like, he's been doing it for a while, and he's still putting out chart toppers, club bangers, incredible features here and there. But with that said, I feel like the number one thing holding Chris back is his discography. Chris's albums tend to run in that 18 to 20 track range. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the more tracks you give an album, the more chances there are of filler songs. And man, Chris's discography just has a lot of filler in there. Like, it gets really ridiculous on 2017's Heartbreak on a Full Moon, which is 45 records on an album, or 2019's Indigo, which had 32 tracks. Meanwhile, to me, what makes MJ's albums so re-listenable is the fact that they're so tight, so concise, so potent, and they leave you wanting more versus having you check your phone every couple of records to see like, man, where are we in the track list right now? So although Breezy puts up a pretty good argument, I feel like his quantity over quality approach to album making really holds him back from really making a great argument. The next artist I want to talk about has a lot more of a concise body of work, and that artist, Justin Timberlake. There are a lot of great comparisons to be made between Michael Jackson and Justin Timberlake. For one, they both started show business at a young age and were both part of famous musical groups, you know, NSYNC and Jackson 5. The two even shared a record together on Love Never Felt So Good. Justin is also super versatile, going from boy band pop to the 2000s Pharrell sound to that electro funk sexy back sound and future sex and love sounds. You know, you've got heartbreak ballads like What Goes Around, Cry Me a River, and he's even experimented with country the last couple years, and the key word there is experimenting. But in my opinion, Justin Timberlake really made a statement with 2013's 2020 Experience. With Timbaland on the production, you know, this was a double album that just brought out all the James Bond 007, Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, classy tux vibes, and also was able to pay homage to his Southern roots on songs like That Girl. It was a critical success, the best-selling album of 2013, and just purely, simply a vivid, cohesive body of work that really puts you in that world, and not only that, put a stamp on Justin Timberlake's argument as the imaginary title of being Michael Jackson's successor. Then he made Man of the Woods, which was his, you know, quote-unquote country album. Look, man, I'm gonna be really honest, it's kind of hard to fight for Justin at this particular juncture just because that album was just so messy and so soulless that it really lowered his stock in my opinion. You know, I get what he was going for and where I was in my life in 2018. You know, I was down for some country, but nope. In recent years, I feel like he's only been known as, you know, the guy who made the Trolls song, you know, Can't Stop the Feeling. Who knows? Maybe he bounces back with this next album and he's right up there in that conversation again. I love Justin Timberlake and I love a lot of his records. I mean, you got Senorita, Sexy Back, Mirrors, Until the End of Time. But with all that being said, I feel like we're still quite a ways away from our Prince of Pop. Enter The Weeknd. Out of everyone on this list, I feel like The Weeknd does the best job at capturing the essence of the sound of Michael Jackson, you know, whether it be through the production, the vocals, the tone. I mean, just check out his cover of Dirty Diana right here.
She touching me so to stop. She said there's no turning back. She took me in her Dirty Diana.
You know, he can do the disco off-the-wall stuff, like on Sacrifice, for example. He's got the heartfelt ballads on lock, and he's been able to create records that fascinate people of all different cultures, of all ages, you know, all around the world. And if we're talking albums, I mean, there's just something to be said about just how legendary The Weeknd's catalog really is. I mean, and just the attention to detail to every single one. You know, you got the grit and grime and just pure atmosphere of the trilogy mixtapes and My Dear Melancholy. You got the cult classic and Kissland. There's the relentless hits of Beauty Behind the Madness and Starboy, or the way in which he's able to craft these, you know, radio-friendly chart toppers while also integrating these, you know, vast, meticulous, philosophical at times concepts in the After Hours trilogy that we've gotten so far. The Weeknd has done it all and has done it with a standard that few other artists we've seen hold themselves to, you know, I'm talking about of all time. Speaking of After Hours, I feel like that album just captured everything that made Michael Jackson so appealing to me, you know. First of all, it's just an incredible album, but then you have, you know, the striking image of a red jacket, the timelessness with this 80s synth waves vibe that he's going for, these angelic vocals coupled with villainous production and vulnerable songwriting. That album, you know, as well as the performances he gave us throughout the year 2020, really cemented him, in my opinion, as one of, if not the pop male icon of the 2020s, at least so far. But what I will say is that you're not gonna catch him popping and locking anytime soon. How I describe The Weeknd and how he dances is just like that really kind of cool, self-aware, but also constantly drunk uncle at the family function, you know, and frankly, I feel represented because of that, but I can imagine why people would want to dock off points. I know I'm going to, you know, just because, again, a big part of Michael Jackson are the big dance solos. I think of Glove in the Hat, Billie Jean, all that stuff, the lean over in Smooth Criminal, like that's a very big part of Michael Jackson. I get it. And it's not like there isn't choreography to what he does, and it's not like he doesn't put on amazing performances. He does just that, but I feel like it's more so because of his vocal talent and the creative genius that he really is. When talking about The Weeknd, I like to think of him as this jaded, dark reimagining of Michael Jackson, where MJ would sing about spending an eternity with the lady in his life. The Weeknd would rather sing about how he would die for her. While MJ would talk about the man in the mirror and striving to be better, The Weeknd reflects on just how much of a piece of shit he is. And, you know, not saying that there's anyone is better, I'm just trying to point out what it is The Weeknd injects into that, you know, timeless romantic energy that Michael Jackson records in the past have. The next artist, on the other hand, I feel like really captures that greatest showman aspect to Michael Jackson. Shout out Hugh Jackman. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about our Filipino king, Bruno Mars. Now, Bruno just oozes charisma and personality when it comes to performing live. You got these dance breakdowns, like, just look at this moonwalk that he does. You also have him pouring his whole heart out during ballads, you know, singing on his knees right outside the door of the girl he loves. And you also get a little bit of comedy in there. That's a dynamic that none of the other artists in this video have, that are, you know, are able to use in their live performances. They've also both been performers since they were kids. You know, you got Bruno being an Elvis impersonator, meanwhile MJ being a part of the Jackson 5, as mentioned before. They also share some of the most consistent live vocals while also being able to hit some of the craziest notes with ease.
I just want you to know, no.
How I like to think of that, you know, two-man race of The Weeknd and Bruno Mars is like The Weeknd channels that bad thriller era of Michael Jackson. Meanwhile, you got Bruno, who really gets that Jackson 5, Ben, fun-loving MJ era that I really love. You know, the MJ with the big collar on the suit. Bruno also reminds me of the Dangerous era MJ, you know, especially with his album 24K Magic. And speaking of albums, Bruno has what we would call a flawless discography, and you can go ahead and check out myself and my co-host Matt really going deep into Bruno's discography and why it works so well in a video that will pop up here or is in the description below, all that stuff. But I would like to see a couple more albums from him, you know, just to solidify that longevity factor. And I'm not saying that he's gonna fall off a cliff or anything. You know, I'm sure he's gonna be making albums for us to enjoy for a very long time, but I would just, you know, like to see how he does it before I put him on that pedestal. But it's definitely trending in the right direction though. Another little nitpick that I would like to mention is that you know, whether it's the 50s jukebox sound, whether it's the, you know, New Jack Swing of the 90s, whether it's Motown funk and soul, Bruno's albums tend to be, you know, homages to eras and genres that shaped him as a musician, that shaped his ear. And if you look at Michael Jackson's discography and kind of place them in the context of, you know, when they were put out, he was always at the forefront and trying to innovate and change things up. So with that being said, I'm just very curious to see what Bruno does with this next album, you know, especially building off of Silk Sonic. In my opinion, his best work to date. Like, is he going to pay homage to another era of music? Is he going to create something that stands outside of any of that? That being said, I appreciate all the albums that he's given us and just how he's been able to really embody, you know, the spirit of Michael Jackson in his performances. So yeah, really great entry. But I feel like there is one artist that ticks off all the boxes, that has the longevity, the countless hits, the discipline and pure showmanship when it comes to performing, and the loyal fan base, the attention to detail with album making, ticks off all the boxes. So the last artist I want to get into is none other than Beyonce. The Queen Bee. Look, some of y'all, for some reason, might think this isn't the sexiest answer, even though I disagree. Since debuting in 1998 with Destiny's Child, Beyonce has since gone on to release classic record after classic record. You know, you got Halo, Single Ladies, Love on Top, Drunken Love, just to name a few. And if we're talking versatility, Beyonce has done it all. You got ballads, every form of R&B, soul, trap, hip-hop, dance, bad anthems, you know, even house music on her most recent album, Renaissance, all while promoting messages of self-love, female and black empowerment, and influencing a lot of today's artists. Another thing about Beyonce is that she's always strived to, you know, push the boundaries of music. Like, I think of her concept album Lemonade, which came with this hour-long film consisting of 11 music videos that was required viewing in order to understand the story of the album, setting the standard for what we would come to know as a visual album. Now, it's not like this was a new concept or anything. Like, the Beatles have done it, Kanye had done it, Daft Punk has done it, but, you know, what Beyonce did with Lemonade was just set the standard for what a visual album is in the modern sense. And honestly, looking back at it, and, you know, like I said, I spent countless hours on this thing. There isn't a lot of objective arguments you can make against Beyonce here. Does she do it as well as Michael Jackson? You know, maybe not, but who does? Again, he is one of one, the standard, the bar, the ceiling. But I feel like she definitely puts it all together in a manner and at a quality, at a standard that no one else really does, you know? Again, only a few other artists have done. She's just a complete package to me. So I feel like definitely Beyonce has a very, very strong argument in being Michael Jackson's successor. The discussion around music has been kind of interesting the last couple years in terms of how it's pushed towards pressuring these artists, you know, to challenge who we acknowledge as like the greatest of all time. Every single album feels like a make or break because it's writing the legacy of, you know, what that artist is. But I don't know, that just doesn't really interest me. But what does interest me is seeing, you know, what traits artists take from the greats, you know, and I'm excited to see, you know, the next wave of artists that take what they love about The Weeknd, you know, what they love about Bruno, what they love about Beyonce, Chris Brown, Justin Timberlake, taking whatever traits they want, combining different artists and making a whole nother artist. The same way those artists took from Michael Jackson, the same way that Michael Jackson took from Fred Astaire and James Brown, you know, the godfather of soul. But before we get there, let's sit back and appreciate this current slate of artists, you know, especially this three-headed monster we have of pure greatness, you know, in The Weeknd, Bruno Mars, Beyonce, that all explore, you know, the qualities of the king of pop while also being unprecedented in their own separate ways. But that's enough of what I think. I'd love to hear what you guys think about, you know, this whole discussion. Who is the heir to the shiny glove? Who is the prince of pop? You know, if you enjoyed this discussion, go ahead and, you know, maybe share it with your family and friends, or, you know, just get their thoughts on this whole, you know, the next MJ thing. Just, you know, I'd love to see how your guys' family and friends respond. Go ahead and leave in the comments below. And again, like I mentioned, go ahead and check out the extended version on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I am Cesco from the Our Thoughts podcast, wishing you a happy holidays, and till we see you guys next time. Peace.